welcome to Week 7 Boom Bust Fantasy Football Show, brought to you by the Fantasy Football Advice Network and Sellout Crowd. I'm Corey, and I'm joined by my brother, Kyle. We're going to break down some booms and busts at each position for your Week 7 fantasy football matchups. Let's break it down for him. Kyle, what do you got for us first?
Well, we're going to start off with my quarterback boom of the week, Mr. Jordan Love. Pretty much the main reason is, of course, they played Denver, who is 30th against quarterbacks this year. They're playing literally no defense, like water through a screen door. But when you look at how Jordan Love's played this season, he's been surprising. Had 20-plus fantasy points, multiple touchdowns in the first 4 games of the year. Had a rough outing against Vegas, then a bye week. I think they come back this week, bounce back, and I think he has a very nice game this week.
Yeah, Jordan Love has exceeded expectations by a long shot in both fantasy football and real life. But I think before the Las Vegas game, I think he was sitting close to about the number 4 quarterback in fantasy football. And then he had a down week and then a bye week, and he's still sitting at number 14, which is still surprising for Jordan Love, right? So still exceeding those expectations. I agree. This is a great game to come back on off of the bye against Denver, who might as well not even field a defense. Well, they pretty much aren't. So, I think this is a good get-right game going forward here. I like it. All right, who do you got at bust for us?
Yes, my QB bust of the week, Mr. Kirk Cousins. He was on here a couple weeks ago against Kansas City. Didn't have a great game. He does really good in really easy matchups, right? This is a very tough matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. They had that letdown game against Cleveland last week. I think the defense is going to come out ticked off, ready to get after the quarterback. And not having Justin Jefferson turned out maybe to be a little more of an issue than we thought it would, considering, they have Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson. You wouldn't expect them to see a huge downturn in that passing offense, but it seemed to affect them just a little bit more than we expected. So I think he struggles a little bit this week against a really, really good defense. And I think I'd be looking elsewhere for the bye week if I'm looking for a QB.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in a game against San Francisco, he would need, in order to succeed, he would need a safety blanket like Justin Jefferson to throw the ball up to in tough situations. I don't see San Francisco letting them get their running game going with Madison, and I think it puts Kirk Cousins in a really tough spot being short Justin Jefferson. So that's a situation I'm shying away from at all costs. Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I agree with Madison. I think they struggled to get the running game going this week with Madison or Akers, but they're also not a great matchup for TJ Hawkinson at the tight end position. So it's really down to Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne, and I'm not sure that's going to be enough for Cousins to have a good game versus this defense.
I agree. It could be really ugly. Like you said, come back with a little chip on their shoulder. I feel bad for Kurt.
Yeah, they're going to be fired up to get back in the win column for sure.
I agree. All righty, let's move on to running backs really quick. Who you got at your boom running back?
Well, speaking of that Cleveland team, Mr. Jerome Ford. I mean, even with a split with Kareem Hunt this last week, and I think that was more by design, right? You go in against the Niners, you want to use ball control, you want to keep that offense off of the field with all of those weapons. And Cleveland run blocks really, really well. They've always been able to run efficiently, even against good teams. So I think that was the whole game plan. I don't think Kareem Hunt gets that many touches every week. Jerome Ford's pretty much the guy. But even with a split, he was very, very efficient and had a lot of volume. He had 17 carries to Kareem Hunt's, I believe it was 14 that Kareem Hunt had. So he's still getting volume even in a timeshare. And Indianapolis this week, 26 against running backs in fantasy. That's a matchup for Mr. Jerome Ford.
I agree. And honestly, when you look at his snap count percentage, he's been hovering around 50%, just barely over or barely under all season long. But the volume is there, not only with rushing, but with passing. So where he might see a little less rushing, he's getting more pass, just kind of depending on the game flow there. But the fact that they will, like they did in week 4, throw 6 passes his way gives him a great boost in value there. And so, like you said, even when he's having that share of 50% or whatever, he's being very productive with it, and so it's pretty safe.
Absolutely. And I just want to throw one more thing out there. 4.9 yards a carry against the Niners. That's amazing.
That's really good. Really, really good.
Yeah, Indianapolis should be afraid. Be very afraid.
Yeah, and they'll be probably without Deshaun Watson again, so probably running the ball quite a bit.
Yep, they'll lean on that run game again because of that.
Yep, love it. All right, let's go on to your running back bust then.
This one might be a little bit of a shocker. He was my boom last week, and I nailed it. But he's my bust this week, Mr. Raheem Mostert with the Dolphins. Now, I'm not saying you can't start this guy. I mean, you probably need to, just because there's always that chance, right? But they're playing Philadelphia this week. Philadelphia is 3rd against running backs. That's tough. Top 5 defense against running backs. Philly is more beatable through the air than they are on the ground. I expect an aerial attack from Hill and Waddle and Tua this week. Bit of a shootout in that regard. I don't think they'll be leaning very heavily on the run game this week. So I would definitely also, they're probably not going to be nursing a lead and need to run as much. So I think I would be tempering expectations at best and finding another option if I have it. Unfortunately, the bye week might make that a little tough. Got quite a few buys this week. So let's see, we got 6 teams on a bye this week. That's a lot of teams. So you probably have to start him, but I definitely would temper expectations this week.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get another 3 touchdown a day out of him. It's been at a crazy production rate right now, crazy touchdown rate, and I wouldn't expect that this weekend. Especially, you mentioned it, Philly beatable through the air. Their secondary is really beat up right now, and so I know they're out shopping trying to find some DBs to help them out in the secondary. So I think that Dolphins offense takes major advantage of that, and that's where they look to strike first, and they're very, very capable of it. So yeah. Now, a bust day for Raheem Mostert is probably a good day for a lot of other running backs. So don't get us wrong on that. But I would just temper those expectations a little bit. I agree with that.
And if you're in a PPR, he's going to get some catches. That'll help boost that point total. Like I said, I wouldn't expect a multiple touchdown game. I don't think he gets in the end zone against Philly. But with the catches and some yards, I could still see him having a 10 or 11 point day.
Not too shabby. All righty. Let's head over. I just want to mention really quick, fantasyfootballadvice.com is a 24/7 social media network, 100% dedicated to fantasy football. You can head over there. You can post questions and get answers and get advice from content creators as well as other players. And you can answer questions of other players too. Build a community, help each other out, and get the help you need, along with reading articles, watching videos, listening to podcasts, and other tools that you can see on this list here. So head over there. It's free to sign up. That's fantasyfootballadvice.com. All righty, Kyle, let's head on to wide receivers. Who's your wide receiver boom for me?
Well, wide receiver boom, I'm going back to that Philly and Miami game. Mr. Devontae Smith. And, like I said, the Eagles are more beatable through the air. Waddle and Hill, you're playing. A.J. Brown, you're playing. But I want to talk about Devontae Smith because he's had a few bad weeks here, especially, against the Rams, against the Jets. He's had a couple, not so great games, right? This guy is still an elite wide receiver. Tons of targets, very involved in this offense. He hasn't gotten in the end zone for a couple of weeks. But when you look at the Rams and the Jets defense, those guys are geared towards stopping the pass. A.J. Brown, of course, is a monster. But, you can't cover them both every week. But I really think this is the week in this matchup where Devontae Smith gets back on track and starts turning some of those targets into more fantasy points. I think he gets back in the end zone this week. So I'm sticking with my man Devontae Smith this week, even though he's had a few down games.
Now, this is typically where I would input my agreement with you and a couple more stats, but instead I'm going to play a little devil's advocate, I guess you can say, and just ask, what about maybe his hamstring injury that he's nursing a little bit and Julio Jones coming on board? Do either of those concern you?
No. So I did see the hamstring issue pop up on the practice report. Coaches don't seem too concerned about it. Nobody seems too concerned that he'll miss this week's matchup for it. So I do think he'll still play. And then Julio Jones signing, I'm not too worried about that. He's going to be, the fifth option at best in that passing pecking order behind, Swift, Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. So I don't think he's going to be an issue. That third receiver spot has never been like a very productive fantasy spot in that offense, whether it's Zacchaeus or whether it's Quez Watkins or whoever. It's just never been a productive spot. Julio Jones past his prime, I don't see him being a big factor.
That I can agree with. All of the above. No offense to Jalen Hurts, but he's not known to be a passing quarterback, so I don't think I want his number 3 wide receiver.
Yeah, exactly.
And number 5 passing option. Yeah. So, alrighty. Let's move on to your bust then.
Yeah, my bust. A couple weeks ago, he was my boom. Didn't work out. This week, he's my bust. Mr. Michael Pittman Jr. versus Cleveland. Cleveland has been playing really, really good defense. They're the toughest defense in the league, ranked number 1 against fantasy wide receivers. They shut down San Francisco's offense last week, and Anthony Richardson out for the year. It's all Minshew. I don't know if that's better or worse for Pittman as the season goes. He seems to like downs a lot. But against this Cleveland defense, I'm certainly looking for a different wide receiver to play in that spot this week.
Yeah, Cleveland's defense has been surprisingly just lockdown defense. We saw it week 1 against Cincinnati, and everyone kind of attributed that to the weather more than anything, and then maybe Burrow's injury. And I think since then we've kind of learned that Cleveland actually is the real deal, and it might have been Cleveland's defense all along. Again, like you mentioned, Anthony Richardson out, Gardner Minshew in. Minshew's capable, but he's also never won the starting position anywhere he's been. So take that into consideration. He's still a backup. Michael Pittman Jr. has been performing decently. He had a good week last week against Jacksonville, but that Jacksonville defense is definitely nothing like this Cleveland defense. So I agree that I want to avoid him if at all possible. Definitely understand if it's not possible because of bye weeks, but good luck to you if you have to play him.
Yeah, Cleveland defense this year has become 49ers East, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
They're shutting it down, man.
Yep.
And I didn't see it coming, but
I don't think anyone did, honestly.
Yeah, but they're killing it.
Absolutely.
Which is good because with Deshaun Watson missing so much time, and they're still able to win games because of that defense. So
yep. Defense wins championships, am I right? Not in fantasy football.
Not fantasy football, but in real life, it sure does.
Alrighty. Let's move on to your tight ends then. Who's your tight end boom?
Yeah, so my boom tight end, he's kind of come out of nowhere, Mr. Michael Mayer. He had real high draft stock as a good pass catcher, good blocker coming out of Notre Dame. The dude's great, but the first few weeks of the season, we're still seeing Austin Hooper getting all the play at tight end in Vegas, and everybody's like, well, what's going on? Me especially. I own him in a dynasty league, and I'm like, why is Hooper still starting? Well, the last couple of weeks, we've seen those targets increase. We've seen those routes run increase. Now it's flipped. He's getting more than Hooper, very consistent. He's starting to show what he can do. He's been very very good with, it's pretty limited still, but with the increase, he's showing what he's capable of. Um, and they're playing Chicago. They've allowed the 13th most points in the league to tight ends. So I really expect him to continue that momentum and keep growing that role and have a good week this week. I hope everybody picked him up off their waiver wires that needs a tight end this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this last week was the last time you're going to be able to pick him up off of waivers, at least for any sort of decent price, or maybe not for too much competition. You're not seeing Devontae Adams demand as many targets in that offense. The targets are kind of being spread around, and I think they finally discovered Michael Mayer and what they have there, which is exciting if you're in need of a tight end, which a lot of us are. So I think that's a good pickup, and he'll continue to gain momentum as they continue to discover his capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me, absolutely.
And he has Jimmy Garoppolo typically at quarterback, who was successful, made Kittle successful there in San Francisco. So
Mhm.
he's a quarterback that's known to throw to his tight end, whereas
Absolutely.
you
They
have
just got to keep him healthy.
quarterbacks that are known not to throw to tight ends. Aaron Rodgers is not much of a tight end guy. He doesn't throw to his tight end very often. Jimmy
Yep,
Garoppolo is one that throws to his tight end. So I like Michael Mayer in that offense, and I like his the possibilities that he has.
absolutely.
All righty, what's your bust?
My bust tight end of the week, Mr. Zach Ertz.
That hurts.
It does Ertz. I mean, they're playing Seattle this week, who surprisingly is fifth in the league against tight ends, which mostly that's probably due to Bobby Wagner as a beast in the linebacking core. So it's not a good matchup, but also his production and his target share in that offense has been decreasing as he kind of levels out with Trey McBride. They've been moving slowly and slowly toward a more even timeshare. And, over the course of the season, we might see Trey McBride even start to overtake, that starting job. So as good as Zach Ertz was early in the year, he's not at the point right now where you can trust him, especially against a tough defense. So I am not starting Zach Ertz this week.
I think you hit the nail on the head with that transition with McBride, right? It's kind of the right season to do that. You've got your star quarterback out, you're kind of struggling already. Why not transition some of your young players in? And McBride is a very capable tight end. We've seen what he can do. So, yeah, I think you're starting to see some of that transition and that handoff to the young guy there as Ertz snap count goes down. This last game, you had 46% snap count, only 5 targets. That target count is pretty low, so not super exciting there.
Yeah, I mean, and if you remember, Trey McBride, he was the top tight end prospect coming out of his class, was ranked very high, was drafted high. So he's expected to be a stud tight end for them of the future. So
Yep.
why not go ahead and start that transition? Like you said, star quarterbacks out, which, speaking of, designated to return now. We might see Kyler Murray sooner than later, boomer sooner.
Okay.
So, yeah, why not make that change and see what the kid's capable of?
No, I totally agree. Let's see how and if he gets to work with Kyler Murray, let's see what that looks like,
Mhm.
Alrighty, so that does for our booms and busts. Let's move on to a couple streamers at kicker and defense here. Instead of boom and bust, let's switch it up a little bit. Let's go with your streamer kicker of the week.
Streamer kicker of the week, Mr. Chris Boswell for the Pittsburgh Steelers, playing against the Rams. The Rams defense has actually been playing pretty good. Chris Boswell is also a very good kicker, but I think they'll be able to move the ball. I think they'll have trouble capping off possessions in the red zone. So I foresee quite a few field goal opportunities for him this week.
And the good thing about Boswell is he has quite a strong leg, so he can go 50+ yards.
Mm-hmm.
Seen him do it over and over again. So it doesn't take much to that. And they're playing indoors in Los Angeles, so that helps even more. So
Yep.
yeah, I agree. There's going to be opportunity there for Chris Boswell.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. And who's your streamer defense of the week?
Streamer defense of the week, the Green Bay Packers.
Who
They
knew?
again playing Denver. That offense is a hot mess, and they've been playing good defense. Um, top half of the league in pressure rate, top half of the league in opponent passer rating, and they're going against Russell Wilson, who threw for 95 yards last week, 2 interceptions, took 4 sacks. Like I say, that offense is a mess. Green Bay's got the tools to take advantage of it. I'm loving them.
No, you said it. This defense is playing great. They've already had 3 games with 4 sacks. They've had 4 games with at least 1 interception. They've scored a touchdown and they've had a fumble as well. So there's a lot of fantasy points getting racked up.
And those numbers are with a bye week already in there.
Yeah, that's true.
Last week was their bye week, so they did that in 5 games.
Yeah, yeah. So they're producing. They're doing pretty well there. So
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I like that pick, especially going against Denver, who ended up just not being great this year. After
Yeah,
all the hype.
and they're not one of those flashy teams that scoring 40 points in a game like the Cowboys did, but and they're not ranked super high in fantasy necessarily, but they're available to pick up in
Yeah,
pretty much every league that I'm in. So I would absolutely go pick them up this week and play them if you've got a Cowboys team on a bye or something like that. So yeah,
yeah. This is definition streamer play. This is the
yeah.
definition of it. Like it
Well, I
is
mean, if
matchup
you look
based.
at the teams on a bye this week, Cincinnati's defense has been good, Dallas has been good, the Jets have been good, Houston's been pretty good. All of them are on a bye this week. This is a perfect streamer to go pick up that's available that you can plug and play.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, guys, that does it for our booms, busts, and streamers for the week. Just one more time, I'm going to encourage you to go to fantasyfootballadvice.com and join the only social media network 100% dedicated to fantasy football. You can give advice, get advice, and see all kinds of content like articles, videos, and podcasts, and just build a community and have fun and get the information you need to win your league this year. That's going to do it for us this week. We really appreciate you guys joining us for Boom and Bust week 7 already. And until next week, good luck.
See you guys.